This is Perspectives. I'm Tracy Alexander. Thank you for joining us. Syria is blaming Israel after explosions were reported in the city of Hama this evening near military targets belonging to the government of the Syrian president. This as the next battle inside the country appears to be imminent. Russia today saying government forces loyal to President Bashar al-Assad are getting ready to solve what it calls the problem of terrorism in the rebel-held stronghold of Idlib. Now, President Vladimir Putin's spokesman Dmitry Peskov not giving a time frame when speaking today, nor commenting on reports that Russian warplanes had carried out airstrikes on Idlib earlier Tuesday, as reported by the Syrian Observatory for Human Rights Monitoring Group. Now, this as US President Donald Trump issues a warning on Twitter ahead of the offensive.
President Bashar al-Assad of Syria must not recklessly attack Idlib province. The Russians and Iranians would be making a grave humanitarian mistake to take part in this potential human tragedy. Hundreds of thousands of people could be killed. Don't let that happen.
And Senior Fellow at the Security Studies Group, Matthew Brodsky, joins me now from Washington, D.C. And with me in studio, Senior Middle East Correspondent Mohammad Al-Kassim. Gentlemen, a pleasure to have you both with us. Mohammad, kick us off. What do we know about these reports of blasts near Hama in Syria?
According to the official Syrian news agency, SANA, a number of airstrikes took place over the central Syrian city of Hama. Explosions were heard by witnesses, and even there are videos showing an airplane carrying out this airstrike. The Syrian government is accusing Israel of being behind these airstrikes. This is not the first one that we've heard about these alleged airstrikes carried out by Israel in the past few weeks, but this shows you how intense and how dangerous the battlefield in Syria and the situation in Syria is getting. But the latest information is that airstrikes were conducted or carried out over the central Syrian city of Hama earlier this evening.
All right. Matthew Brodsky, to you in Washington, D.C. Reports, of course, accusations, as we typically hear in these scenarios, are being attributed to Israel. What do you make of the timing of such a strike?
Right. Well, let's be clear. This area right here is where the Syrian Scientific Research Center is located, which has long been associated not only with Syria's pursuit of chemical and biological weapons, a program that it has worked on, by the way, with North Korea and with Iran, but it also is in charge of the technology for creating surface-to-surface missiles that can carry that type of chemical weapons. So we've seen Israel strike this area a few times, and of course there's the mystery assassination by a bomb, like a car bomb that is, that killed one of the head scientists at the research center, which appears to be very close by. What we can make of all of this, I think that's most important, is that at a time when President Trump is warning of a red line on the use of chemical weapons, we're seeing that Israel is probably them taking out sites that are associated with chemical weapons production and not waiting to see exactly where and how it's going to be used, which would be a very smart move on their part.
All right, Mohammad, to you, we know that rebels are already going to great lengths to prevent any kind of onslaught, which is of course coming their way. It's just a matter of time. What kind of a battle can we expect?
This probably will be the bloodiest and the most fiercely conducted battle of all the Syrian conflict. This is the last stronghold of the opposition. If they lose it, they're done. And that's why we will see if this assault takes place. I mean, mounting expectations that it will take place in coming weeks, but we have not. Diplomats are trying to maybe delay or at least avert this bloodshed, as the United Nations called it today. And in fact, the UN has pleaded with the Russian President Vladimir Putin and the Turkish President to get on the phone and try to reach some sort of an agreement. Why Russia and Turkey? Turkey supports, staunch supporter of many major Syrian opposition. Russia has been a staunch supporter of President Bashar al-Assad. We have close to 3 million civilians and rebels in the province of Idlib, and that's why this could be the bloodiest of all battles in Syria.
And Matthew, back to you in Washington, D.C. Of course, this is being called the last offensive. Of course, after this, there's already talk of reconstructing Syria. Now, you've published a review of the Assad regime's financial situation. How is Iran looking to and is already set to benefit from Syria's reconstruction?
Both Iran and Russia are broke as countries, and of course they're the ones responsible for keeping Assad in power. So they've had to make agreements with Russia, with Assad, in order to get paid back. So Russia has been concentrating on oil and gas. Iran is engaged with its entire entrenchment enterprise, which is including electrical systems, also some gas and natural resources, and securing its land corridors. So they're trying to fast forward through this Idlib massive battle that we're about to witness and into the part where they can get the international community to start funding the Assad regime for reconstruction. Of course, Assad isn't going to use that to rebuild anything for any of the Syrians. That's going to for anyone that basically wasn't promoting what he was promoting. So this is where Russia and Iran are hoping to benefit from that type of corruption. The United States, thank God, is at the moment with its Kurdish forces and allies and other friends camped out on top of the major oil fields in eastern Syria, and they have a base that is really disruptive to the land corridor that Iran has created. So the U.S. is not without leverage if it wants to apply pressure, and I really hope it does.
And looking at Iran's entrenchment, still with you, Matthew, in Syria now with this military and reconstruction deal it's signed with Syria, the U.S. ambassador to the UN, Nikki Haley, has effectively said to Russia, well, you broke it, referring to Syria, it's yours now. But Iran's certainly sinking its claws into reaping the financial fruits from the reconstruction. We've heard a lot of talk about the fact that this could bring Russia and Iran to loggerheads. Could this at least see Russia have more of an incentive to rid Syria of Iran?
Well, in the long term, you might see Russia and Iran go after it and go after each other in a slight competition over resources. But I think what the United States needs to do is to exacerbate every single fissure that exists within the Russian alliance with Assad, with Iran, anywhere that there is a fissure inside of Iran, whether it's between the people and the regime, wherever there is, the U.S. should push that open and widen it more. And I think the U.S. has the tools available to do that. Specifically, if Russia and Iran are going to have spent this much blood and treasure, and again, both countries economically doing so poorly at the moment, if they're not going to get the rewards because the United States decides it's going to control the flow of reconstruction money with Europe, say, to a different group of Syrian business people, and we spend the time to actually expose the fraud that Assad is trying to perpetrate on the international community, we can really end up giving them a cause to fight amongst themselves, while still it's theirs to own. But the United States and allies could, of course, help out and guide the recovery better. That seems to me like a very good template forward.
All right, and of course, now we're looking ahead to a meeting on Friday between the presidents of Iran, Turkey and Russia. We'll be following that closely. Appreciate that insight, Washington, D.C. Matthew Brodsky, and of course, our senior Middle East correspondent, Mohammad Al-Kassim, with us in studio.